Okay, today I'm going to share with you 50 of my favorite fonts to use. You might have seen a lot of these in my previous setup, some might be new to you, but I basically am going to split them onto pages. So the first page I'm going to fill with basic fonts. So this is my basic collection that I would use on a day-to-day basis, very simple to do and easy to achieve. First cab off the ranks is your very straightforward capital letter font, but I just enlarge the spacing between the letters. The technical term for this is called kerning. So increased kerning just gives it a more sophisticated feel, I think. This next font is exactly the same, but wherever the strokes meet or the end of the strokes, you just place a little dot. The third is the same again, but just using a little stroke to give a little serif to each letter. This one I increase the kerning more, make them more spread out, and I'm just doing normal sentence case lettering, so lowercase letters, and I think this is nice if you want it to look a little less formal. Next one that's very easy to do is do your straightforward capital letters, but then do a sharp bubble around it, so do a double outline, one on the inside, one on the outside. I personally don't love it here. It looked much nicer in my Jamaica bullet journal where I did it for the word agenda, if you've seen that. For some reason, this particular word just didn't look right for me. Next is your block letters. And what I wanted to show you here is how I create them so that they tend to look nicer. You break it up into sections of the letters. So you're just doing shapes and then you just fill them in afterwards and you'll find it looks a lot cleaner, instead of trying to guess the shape and color in all as one. And number 7 of our super basic fonts is just a condensed version of those capital letters. Just reduce the kerning and squish up each letter so that it's nice and condensed. Now we're moving on to more title-based fonts. The first is what I would call an open letter. So just making a double thick stroke for each down stroke and then leaving the inside open. The next is exactly the same, but I'm just filling in the open section with some diagonal lines. And you can really fill it with any pattern you like. This next one is a traditional serif font. I basically just start with your capital letters, but thicken them up slightly and then add the serifs to the end of each stroke. It's a lot like your standard Times New Roman font. This next one is very easy to achieve. You're just doing the shapes of the letters in a slightly more bubble or oval shape. And then once you've compiled the letters, you just add a drop shadow by adding one line to the right-hand side of where it would be if it had a shadow on it. This next one is your basic block letters, and then I just fill in the middle section with a standard letter in white to make it look a little bit different. This would work so much better with a thinner nib on it, but I only had the broad nib here. So yeah, if you do this, try it with a thin white pen. Number 13 is a slightly more relaxed font, a little bit youthful. It's kind of fluid to me and it's sort of teardrop shaped. They're all thicker at the bottom. I like this for more relaxed and kind of fun vibes. Now these next ones are definitely more title based. You wouldn't do a lot of these throughout your setups, but they're great for titles. This first one I use a light grey texture. Any light colour would work. And then I just add a fake drop shadow by adding a stroke directly next to the right-hand side of every stroke. And I just love the effect it gives. And this next one is doing an open block letter and then putting a drop shadow on it by doing the same letter just slightly off to the right and down a little bit. And that gives you that effect that it's stood off from the paper. This font is a very basic scratchy font. It just means you can be really relaxed with it and don't worry if lines don't meet, they kind of cross over. That sort of adds to the appearance. This next one is using that marker again, and this time you outline it and you do very soft curves on it, so it's kind of like a bubble font. Number 18 is one of my personal favorites. So you start with the shape using your marker and then just fill in the strokes using lines. So I always start on the right-hand strokes and then meet them with the lines on the other side. Hope that makes sense, but you can see how I'm doing it here. Now this one is very easy to achieve as well, but quite dramatic. Just use your marker and then colour in the bottom half with a black pen. This one's nice and easy. Just use your marker to do some standard sentence case lettering and then run a white line through all of the bottom half section, kind of like Kanye's glasses. Super basic one here, just do 2 strokes above and below your normal capital case letters. This one I love the look of, and it is so simple. Just do your standard condensed letters about 2 grid sections high, and then instead of doing your strokes through the center, just move them up into the top third. Now we can use our marker again with this one and create a kind of stencil look by adding the white line down the center. And then to give it that more kind of stencil appearance of where the ink's running out, I just do some dots on it. Just adds a little something to it. Now for a nice and easy italic capital letter font, reduce the kerning, keep them nice and tight, and it'll look like this. And number 25 is a thickened capital letter font, and then I outline that all around with a thin line. So this looks much nicer to me, I think, than the earlier outlined one. And I think it's really effective for titles. So that is our basic collection. And now we're going to move on to the hand collection. So where you're doing script fonts and more calligraphy based ones. This first font is my go-to font when I'm using this Fudonusuke pen. I said it, I think, right. I've done a full tutorial on using this pen and how to create calligraphy using other pens. I'll link that in the description box below. Next up is a thin font that you use just normal script lettering, but you really extend out the kerning between the letters. So you're just adding a long stroke to stretch it out. This is really common in bullet journals, I've noticed. This one is more of just a handwritten font. I just like to thicken up the downstrokes, and it gives a nice, easygoing, effortless effect. This one is a little more decorative with large swirls and then interlinking each letter and then thickening up that stroke. So this is basically called faux calligraphy. You don't need the special pen, you can just thicken up all those downstrokes. This one uses really big ribbon-like curls. So it's a very curly, decorative font and very feminine. So I would only use this in certain scenarios, but I think it looks really pretty. Now this one is an elongated cursive again, using those linking strokes, but we're just adding ticks to either side so that they sort of, or strokes, so that these swishes come out and extend past the letters. This is nice for titles, and I use it a lot on weekly pages. And now for your basic open cursive. So writing your usual script font and then just thickening up one side of where the downstrokes would be. So that's our basic cursive fonts. Now I'm going to get a little bit more decorative, but still really easy. The first one I'll show you is a sort of serif letter that's kind of bouncing off of the lines, very relaxed, so it looks handwritten. And then I'm just filling in the thick strokes with little horizontal lines. This next one is simple handwritten letters, really relaxed done. And then just to add a little bit of interest, I like to do dots wherever I see fit, mainly down the length of the strokes. Now for a very curly font, just add some swirls and curls to the ends of each letter and you've achieved this guy. This one uses the marker again, so just using a standard cursive font and then adding in that shadow line to the right hand side. I make a little error here, but it's very easy to fix in a bullet journal. You can just add a little bit of white pen to it to cover up your mistake. And then I add a few little dots to make it a little bit more interesting as well. Now for a very feminine and youthful font, I think. I'm just using relaxed, curly sort of letters that are spaced apart nicely, and then little love hearts for the dots on the I's and the J's. Back into the marker again, just writing out using your standard cursive font, and then outline this using dots. Takes a little while and not overly legible, but I think it's nice for titles and a bit of a change. Now for most of my favorites, which are definitely more title and arty, but still really easy to achieve. So this first one is a cursive again with open letters, and then you just add strokes to the top and the bottom, bringing them up into the center and leaving that highlight so it makes it look like a reflective kind of chrome look text. This one involves simple cursive with elongated ticks at the end, and then just to add a little bit of something, you add little drips or leaves to the end of the strokes. Back to using the Fudanouske pen, and I'm doing the same kind of cursive bounce lettering, and then adding a white stroke with my white pen just down the down strokes. So where those thick lines are, just break them in half by using the white pen. Gives a cool effect, I think. Love this one, and it's so simple. Just use your marker to do a cursive font in the background, quite large, and then use a pen with a smaller nib and smaller font for a capital letter through the middle. Looks really cool, and I use this a lot in my weeklies. Now this one you could use with lots of different shapes. I chose circles, and I just put the letters inside the circles and then add a little drop shadow to the base. Now for an unusual and cute one, I just do the standard letters, but I just break every section up with a dot. Pretty much place a dot wherever you feel like it, at the end or at the intersecting parts. Looks really cool. And now for this one is a standard script font, and then you just outline the whole thing in a big bubble and add that drop shadow to the base. Very effective. This guy is super cool. You just add serifs to each letter, and then on one of the strokes add a dripping sort of leaf. I don't know how to describe that shape. Like a teardrop. It's a teardrop shape. I love the look of this one. Just simply do a jaggy scribble with marker and then put your cursive font over the top in a thin pen. Number 48 is a cursive font with the marker, and then outline that marker using soft curves, make it sort of like a bubbly font, and then just add some little, I don't know what to call them, sparks maybe, like little strokes at the end, that just outline those as well. 49 is a similar style, but I'm trying to make it look almost like a ribbon, so you sort of connect each letter together, and then where it does cut through the letter, make a little shade. Impossible to describe. Hopefully you get what I mean by watching it. It's sort of like a ribbon. And number 50 is a standard cursive, again using that Fudanouske pen, and then I just love to add dots. So I just add dots on the letters that go above the X line. So I hope you enjoyed all these fonts, and maybe one of them is your favorite. If you do have a favorite, leave me what number it was down below. I'll just zoom in now and give you a quick recap of all the fonts. And don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and if you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. I do new bullet journal videos and arty-based videos every Saturday, and I hope to see you again next week in my new video. Okay, have a great week guys. See you later.